Well, November is rapidly approaching, and the Puget Sound Antique Radio Association hosts puts on a radio competition every year in November on their meeting day. And we have multiple categories: test equipment, wood radios from 30s, 40s, bakelite sets, battery sets, test, you name it, we have a category for it. And of course, there is a television category. Now, normally, there was only really one participant. And since I got into the club and started getting into TVs, I put in my first television last year, and I don't think I won that one. There was a Philco Safari, and I'm pretty sure the Safari won just because it had the cool factor. So this year, the other TV collector and I made a gentleman's agreement. We will each be bringing an electrostatic set and to have them working for the competition. Now, we decided that he would be bringing a metal cabinet National TV-7, but his has the signal voltmeter built into it for... oh, come on, what's it for? Basically, if you had a truck to drive around to pick up TV signals, this television can be used to check the picture quality, and it could also be used to check the signal strength. So you have I think it's a microvolts. I have a TV channel microvoltmeter with the channel assembly into it, but this one was so that you could actually go around, scan, and see how powerful the signal was in an area. Kind of a neat feature. And the National came with two other varieties: the standard TV-7, which didn't have the meter, and a metal cabinet with the gray paint, and the TV-7W, which was a wood cabinet, and I actually have one of those with a magnifying lens. But I did initially think about doing the Wood National to compete against his metal one, but I opted against that because I got this Pilot TV-37 at the August swap meet, and I really wanted to get it working. This is one of those TVs that I'd seen pictures of and thought, that's just too cool. It doesn't take up a lot of space, it's lightweight, and it just has a cool factor, which is not obvious because the carrying case, this is an original accessory carrying case. Feet are on the bottom, there's a handle on the top, and there are a pair of extending antennas come out either side. Very, very cool. But most importantly, the TV-37 itself is a 3-inch electrostatic set with continual tuning. So this just has a standard tuner, but it is split into two bands. So you have the lowest channels on the lower section and the higher channels on the top. Looks like the lower section goes up to channel 6. And this set is new enough that it does not have channel 1. These were introduced in 1948. I don't know how long Pilot actually built them, but at a little under $100 in '48, this was the cheapest thing money could buy. I think the next step up would have been a Pilot or a Motorola VT71, which was about $130, $129.99, something like that. So fairly affordable, but it was also the smallest thing you could get, and I can imagine this was pretty hard on the eyes. They did make a magnifier for this. I've seen pictures of them. I don't have one. It would be cool to find one, though. But the other reason why I wanted to work on this is because the situation in which I purchased this is actually a little bit sad. The previous owner of this set passed away in his early 40s, I believe, and his widow, like in a lot of these situations, wound up having to liquidate his collection. And this was one of the items that she brought to the August swap meet, and we had a member help her work on pricing things and trying to recoup costs and all that, and tried to help her the best she could, or the best he could. I didn't know that this was in the collection, and I paid full price for this because it was worth it. And she asked me what I would be able to do with it, and I told her that it is absolutely possible to watch modern programming on this or anything at all that you want. And I got in contact with her, and so I want to be able to get this working, so at the very least I can send her video proof that it's alive. So kind of, you know, trying to kill two birds with one stone here. Get it ready for the competition and make someone happy. You know, this is a memory of her late husband, and I want to preserve it, and I want to make it functional. I think it has had a little bit of work done to it, but not a lot. I haven't actually looked underneath the chassis except for the little ventilation slot that's on the bottom. I do like the nice little note in here that says backup set to be placed at this end of case. Interestingly, the TV antenna that's built into this has these little push button guys. I need to do a little research. I'm not entirely sure if this antenna is factory or not. I mean, it looks like it. Everything is nicely placed. It's all nickel plated. I need to look up some pictures and see how it was done, but I'm pretty sure this is factory. But I got two really cool things with this. The first of which is a complete Sam's Photo Fact for this TV. This is fantastic, full schematics, alignment instructions, all that good stuff. So that's cool. The liner in here is still in pretty good shape. Probably needs a little bit of a vacuuming though. But this is probably the coolest part. So I looked at this and saw that this is a television picture tube warranty from the, let's see, is this from Clearbeam? It had Clearbeam television picture tube. Yeah, and this is from Burien. And I thought, well, why would it need a warranty? Well, it needs a warranty because this 3KP4 CRT has a rebuilt electron gun. When I initially showed it off after the swap meet, I pulled the lid off and discovered that there was an obvious seam on the CRT neck where the electron gun assembly had been cut off and removed and then reattached to the CRT bell, and the vacuum pulled again and the getter flashed and all that good stuff. So this specific CRT was rebuilt in 1978, and this card is the warranty for that, which is pretty cool. I knew that CRT rebuilding was said to have been done fairly late. Unfortunately, the equipment's pretty much gone and no one knows how to do it anymore, which is kind of sad, but the fact that I have this proof of that is very cool. Although it is interesting that this states that the user is the Checkerboard TV Museum, which I find fascinating. I need to look up this address because I don't know anything about that. I don't know if this actually relates to the previous owner or not, or if this is before their time. So that's very cool. But that aside, we need to get inside this thing because I only have about a month to work on it, and being as this is an electrostatic set, it's going to have capacitors in there that I most likely do not have on hand and need to get ordered. And since teleportation hasn't been invented yet, it does take time for those parts to get to me, and I need time to be able to work out any issues I might run into. So this one little sheet metal screw right here is our ticket into the inside, and I love it. All the original stickers are still in place. The original labels on the back are all intact. The only thing that is not, unfortunately, is the original power cord. This did have the same style of disconnect, so when you take the lid off, it's, well, but taking the lid off can't actually be done until you grab a hold of the cord and pull it back. So unlike other sets where the backer actually has the plug riveted to it, so that when you try to take like the high voltage cage off, it unplugs automatically. On this one, the plug is just shoved into the chassis, and when you grab the lid and everything, you need to disconnect it because it's sort of hanging around it through this hole. It was damaged. The copper was exposed and it was being shorted together, so I cut that off and disposed of it. And I'm going to have to find a new cheater cord because I don't have enough for all my TVs. But if we had taken out the screws in the bottom, then all we would have to do is lift this clean off like that. Super easy. And then I have to figure out where to put all these parts for safety reasons. Okay. So what do we have to work with? Alright, just to highlight what I mentioned, here is the seam on the electron gun assembly where they reattached the whole electron gun. That is very, very cool. Everything else in this is fairly clean, and a little bit of dust on the chassis, nothing crazy. There's no indication of like fire damage or burning. The only suspicious thing that I noticed while looking this over is this power resistor right here that's hanging out with this piece of rubber zip cord. And the zip cord has gone rock solid and is starting to chip, and the solder work on this is really bad. So that's probably not original. I'm curious as to where that's going though, because this uses a permanent magnet loudspeaker. I'll need to check the schematic. I'm pretty sure that's original. The only reason I would see one of these here is if you're replacing an electromagnetic speaker and you were using this in lieu of the field winding. That's not the case here, so that's a little odd. We've got three electrolytic multi-section caps hiding up front. There's one with the metal can, and then these two, which I believe, according to what I read, are positive lead to ground. So these are single section, 80 microfarad, 150 volts, and I can't see what that one is. But there should be enough space on the underside of the chassis, so I'll be able to put the new ones in there. So if they're only single section, that should be a snap. And let's take a look at what is underneath. I should be able to just flip it over and rest it against this. This is pretty solid, and the picture tube's not really going anywhere. Doesn't look too bad. A little more shallow than I anticipated. Oh, interesting. It's had some work done. Not as much as I'd really want, but it's had some work done in the past. Okay. There's no evidence of anything having blown up. It's all pretty clean. There are obviously a lot of these new red film capacitors. 0.25. There's a 1600 volt one there. It's attached around to some of these. And these controls, well, no, the solder on them is about as old as the resistors, so those are probably factory. There's some small electrolytics, this one here, that one there, and that one there. That'll need to be addressed. There's still a wax cap here, 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 there, and there. That'll have to be addressed. Those things, the ceramic body boogers, those are no good. So that'll go away. That looks like a repair and a resistor lead. That's been tacked back in here and here. And this guy floating out in space in here, my goodness. Is this one of the high voltage guys? Only 1600 volts though. Usually in these sets, the capacitors for the deflection circuits are rated at 6000. Well, let's verify that versus the schematic. What does the schematic say in that regard? Let's see. Huh. Looks like this chassis view they've got is for one of the previous iterations that... No, it's got the above-board electrolytics. Are those... Okay, I'm comparing the drawing here. We've got these great big capacitors with clamps right here. So these are paper. And there's also a big one over here, C72. That thing looks pretty new. That's kind of like a doorknob cap. There's this big guy right here. What is that rated at? That says 5 kilovolts. This should be the high voltage cage. That'll be the 1B3, and that's the leads coming from the RF coil. Got those two little guys. Okay, I would assume that this one, C61, and this other big one, C60, are going to be for the deflection circuits. So, according to the schematic, let's see. So, the CRT over here. 300 picofarad, 300 picofarad. So there's C61, 0.005, and there's C60, 0.005. And those are coming off, that one's coming off the vertical amplifier. Is there one coming off the horizontal? Not really. So those are the ones that I would be assuming are supposed to be 6,000-ish volts, and now we just got to check the parts list. Okay, all the way down here, yep, C60, 0.005, 6,000 volts, and C61, 0.005, 6,000 volts. And it looks like, from the list, those are the highest rated ones, although there are those two, C72 and 73, that are also 0.005. Those are each rated at 3,000 volts, one of which is listed as high voltage filter. H72, or R72 I should say. Where's that? That's R75 over here that's attached to the socket. Yeah, there's been some interesting work done to this. Well, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of work to figure out what changes have been made to the circuit already. So I've got those two that are rated at 6 grand. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 caps here that are listed at 3,000 volts. And I've got one at 4,000. That one's listed as high voltage filter, C71. And then C75, which is rated at 1,000 volts. So, yeah, there's a few things that I am just not going to have on hand here. Okay, so C75, 1,000 volt guy is supposed to be this, which has now got some sort of ceramic cap that is, that's rated at 3K. So that is over the value necessary, 0.002. I mean, outside of the low-quality soldering job, I mean, it is probable that it works. And then we've got this thing, purple guy here. What's that? 12,000 plus or minus 5%. 12,000 what? Alright, well, it's not fabulous looking under here. There's been some interesting changes made, and I'm going to have to very carefully replace the capacitors that are not factory, and a lot of resistors from the look of it. There's probably a good number of high-value ones over here in the high-voltage section, probably these big guys that are... the ones that are higher in value, like in the mega-ohm range, tend to be the ones that drift the worst. So... okay. Well, I'm happy with how everything looks. What I want to do next is track down my cheater cord and honestly just see if this thing will power up, period. Maybe even get a little bit of high voltage, see if the CRT will come up. Very carefully, of course. So I have to figure out what on earth I did with that cord. I think it's still attached to the portable GE. So I'll snag that, I'll grab my isolation transformer in the Variac, and we'll see if this thing generates any light. Alright, well here we go. I'm going to kill the lights. Variac plugged in, you got the isolation transformer plugged into the Variac. And power on. And we're going to very, very gently bring this up. Now, given that this is a series strung set, I'm not likely to get anything glowing until I get a decent amount of voltage on there. Let's see, what are the controls on the back? Focus, vertical size, horizontal hold, vertical hold, centering. None of those look very useful. Alright, I've got a little further I can go, but I don't really want to push this thing. I'm at about 100 volts. Oop. We have a raster, but I also heard some moderately concerning noises in there. Okay, so yeah, we do actually have something on the screen. But those little clicking noises that I'm hearing are not happy. That sounds like discharging. So, I'm going to say that's successful. So we know the 3KP4 does have life. We have high voltage, so that's great. It should really just be a matter of doing the standard recap procedure on this, and I need to get started making a list of all the parts in that case. So, cool. I still don't know what this... That power resistor get warm? Not really. Does this drawing show there being a resistor up there? No, it does not. So I gotta figure out what on earth that is for. C71. Apparently there's also a paper capacitor that hides on the inside of this C71. Let me unplug this real quick and we'll take a quick look inside there, since I have the ability to. These I can actually get to open up. It has been relocated. There is a puddle of suspicious wax where there ought to be a wax capacitor. So I am going to guess that one has been moved. That's probably the big red thing that I saw down there. Okay. Oh, interesting. The band on the 1B3 GT, is that just a piece of brass? That does not look original. Usually the little, this should be a coil spring that's used for feedback for the RF coil here that generates the the high voltage, that is typically a spring. And also, I'm not sure if that's how high it's supposed to be. I usually see them a little further up on the envelope. But I mean, hey, it might be the factory position for it, so interesting. Okay, well, before I do anything dumb, I'm going to put these screws back where I found them. So I've been having to deal with determining what hardware goes where on another project, and I don't need to repeat that mistake on this one. So I'll try to get everything back in its home now. Save me trouble later. Cool. Okay, well, I'm curious where that lovely popping noise was coming from. Honestly, there's no telling. The only way to do it would be for me to flip this thing over like it is now and run it again. I don't feel like doing that. I don't need to risk damaging something. But just looking at the mess of all the original caps that are still in here and all the low voltage electrolytics and everything, it's impressive as it is that it even came up and gave us a display. So, yeah, I think that's going to about do it. Going to move on and make a parts list. Now, a lot of these, the lower voltage stuff, I can just go ahead and start replacing those and then start making a game plan for the electrolytics and the power supply section, since all three of them... So those are single sections, that's easy. This one is a dual section electrolytic. That one... What have we got to deal with there? So across... Oh, interesting. This does actually state that it originally had a field coil speaker. And that was the choke from 140 microfarad to the other 100 microfarad. What are the odds? Yep. Okay, so my initial suspicion was correct. This piece of cord here that's running up to the top of the chassis is bridging the two sections of this electrolytic. So this is our 40 and 100 microfarad main filter cap here. That is that an insulating wafer? No, that's grounded to chassis. Is it? Yes. Shared ground directly to chassis. So this resistor that's in there is taking up the space. That speaker looked surprisingly factory. I'm disappointed it isn't. Huh. It looked... The picture on there, for all the world, looks like that ought to be the factory speaker. Was there a field coil connection on it originally? Well, okay. No, the speaker's not quite the same as what the drawing shows. Yeah, this is also a different output transformer, so no, this is not original. It's the same size, but it's not the original. Bummer. I wonder if I could find a better place to mount that power resistor. I mean, it does need to be able to dissipate heat, obviously, but this zip cord business here is not great. And I might be able to find a way to mount it to one side of the chassis to dissipate heat better and not have to run this business out here. But all that is for next time. Once again, thanks for joining me on this little trip, and I will see you in the next... For crying out loud. Really? Why is this... Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, and I hope to see you in the next one, where I should have a bag of parts, and hopefully have a little bit of progress done on this because time is ticking down. Once again, thanks for watching.